The latest Osama Bin Laden tape appears to show a significant change of tone from the al-Qaeda leader. Is this because he's losing influence, or is al-Qaeda as an organization growing weaker? This is Inside Story. Hello there, I'm Nick Clark. In a tape released on Sunday, the al-Qaeda leader, Osama Bin Laden, warned America over Washington's close ties with Israel. Entitled A Statement to the American People, Bin Laden's tape referred to the impact of the pro-Israel lobby in the US. He asked people to make up their own minds.
The time has come for you to liberate yourselves from fear and the ideological terrorism, to open the file of your alliance with Israel to discussion, and to ask yourselves and make up your minds. Is your safety, your blood, children, money, jobs, homes, economy, and reputation are more important to you, or the security of the Israelis, their children, and their economy? Should you choose your security and stopping the wars, this will require you to hold accountable those who are meddling in our security on your behalf. We are ready to respond positively to this option on solid and fair basis.
Well, before we get stuck into the discussion, a little bit of background. Al-Qaeda was formed in the late 80s, of course, from elements of the Mujahideen fighting the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. And when the Soviets withdrew, the network began looking for new jihads or holy wars. They say they want to free Muslim countries of Western influence and get rid of what they view as corrupt regimes. They've planned and executed several attacks right around the world. The attack on US embassies in Kenya and in Tanzania back in 1998, killing more than 220 people. In 2001, 9/11, 3,000 killed in the worst ever attacks on American soil. October 2002, in the Far East, the Bali bombings killed more than 200 people. In March 2004, mainland Europe was hit. 10 bombs exploded on 4 commuter trains in Madrid, killing 191 people and injuring nearly 2,000. July 2005, bombs exploded on 3 trains and 1 bus in central London. 52 people were killed, 700 were injured. In December 2007, 2 car bombs in Algiers killed more than 40 people. And last year in June, al-Qaeda attacked the Danish embassy in Pakistan, and that killed 6 people. All right, to take all this on are our guests. Join us today in Washington, D.C., David Gartenstein-Ross. He's Vice President of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. In Cairo, Dia Rashwan. He's an analyst on political Islam and extremist groups at the Al-Ahram Center for Political and Strategic Studies. And in Islamabad, Saleem Shahzad. He's the Pakistan Bureau Chief of the Asia Times Online, and he's written extensively on al-Qaeda. Gentlemen, all welcome. David Gartenstein-Ross, I'd like to start with you first, if I may. All this talk about al-Qaeda as an organization in just a moment. Let's talk about Osama bin Laden, the man himself, the figurehead. Preparing for this, I read somewhere that he was described as a fading gangland boss trying to rekindle his notoriety with these tapes. Is that how you view him?
I don't agree with that at all. Bin Laden went through a period in which his influence had very much diminished. When he lost his safe haven in Afghanistan, there was a period of about 2 to 3 years where al-Qaeda's central leadership was very much marginalized, and where the various satellite al-Qaeda groups ended up stepping to the perimeter, stepping to the front. But thereafter, you had al-Qaeda regroup in Pakistan. They're quite strong there right now. He certainly has a large communications capability, and I would describe al-Qaeda's central leadership in Pakistan as essentially being the brain. They're able to fuse talent in bomb making and operatives and the training camps that they have with financiers. The 9/11 Commission report very clearly says that to carry out a catastrophic act of terror like 9/11, one thing terrorist groups require is a safe haven. Al-Qaeda's central leadership does have that in Pakistan now, and that's something that makes them quite significant. If you look at recent terrorist plots in Europe, a lot of them link back to Pakistan.
Okay, dear Rashwan, do you think Osama bin Laden, the man, still has the influence that he did, say, 8 years ago?
Osama bin Laden all the time has same influence. It means that we are in face of a kind of supreme guide. Osama bin Laden never was organizational leader or direct leader for al-Qaeda. He prefer all the time to give himself the function or the quality as a guide. And we remember that when Osama Bin Laden and other Islamic leaders signed in 1998 what they call the International Front Against Crusaders and Jews, all the others, including Ayman al-Zawahiri and some other from Bangladesh and Pakistan, put their qualifications as emir or leaders of their groups. Only Osama Bin Laden signed as Osama Bin Laden. Till now, Osama Bin Laden, in his speeches, his discourse, trying to give this impression for his followers around the world, to give the impression that he is only encouraging the jihad against the foreigners, against the Americans, the enemies of the Muslim Ummah, but not as a leader. And I think that the influence of Osama Bin Laden within his followers still the same. Perhaps his image, his influence vis-a-vis the average Muslims is weakened than it was 6 or 7 years ago.
Okay, let's bring inside Saleem Shahzad. So do you think that these tapes, that this message, the latest message that he's put out and those that have gone before, have any kind of impact directly on the West anymore, or are they just kind of aimed at his followers, trying to demonstrate that his zeal is still there, that he still exists as this kind of figurehead?
Well, Osama bin Laden has always been a symbol of this movement of al-Qaeda. Recently, I mean, for the last few years, al-Qaeda has restructured itself, its command structure on the horizontal lines rather than vertical lines. From horizontal lines, I mean that they have several standalone operators, especially in the Pakistani tribal areas. They have alliance with several tribal warlords who have, extensively imbibed al-Qaeda's ideology. And they are now working standalone. And they don't need any
So what are you saying? You're saying that Osama bin Laden is not pulling those strings, that he's not in control of what they do?
That's true in a way. I mean, he is still a symbol for the movement, but he is not directly, involved in the operations. Like he's not passing on the, directions on day-to-day basis or weekly or monthly basis. He actually, conveyed. He would actually convey the broader policy parameters to the various, warlords in the Pakistani tribal areas or in Iraq or in Somalia or in other northern African countries. But he would not direct them day-to-day, instructions. He would not directing them, he's not the commander, you can say. He's not the commander, actually. He's just a spiritual symbol for the movement.
So, David, in Washington, doesn't this kind of franchising of al-Qaeda, if you like, doesn't that weaken the network, or at least give potential for the various elements, various branches of the tree to take their own direction?
It certainly does, and there's a lot of autonomy that's given to the different regional nodes. I agree with what Mr. Shahzad was saying about the Pakistani tribal regions and about the fact that there are a lot of groups that share a similar ideology that are operating side by side alongside al-Qaeda. But one thing I should point out also is that it's not just Osama bin Laden at top hierarchies in the organization. You also have him surrounded by top lieutenants. There are definitely training camps there where these individuals are able to go and talk to operatives. And one thing I should point out is that al-Qaeda's senior leadership, bin Laden and definitely Zawahiri, knew in advance about the attacks that were coming on July the 7th, 2005 in London. That's how Zawahiri was able to release a tape so quickly after those bombings occurred, including showing the message of Mohammed Sadiq Khan and broadcasting that for all the world to see. So I don't agree that the group is operationally irrelevant. I think that there is a lot of autonomy given to these regional nodes of al-Qaeda, but you can also see the hands of al-Qaeda in Pakistan in some of the recent plots. Another plot that I should definitely point out is the August of 2006 transatlantic air plot. If that had succeeded, it would have been very catastrophic, both to the people killed and also to the airline industry in the U.S., Britain, and elsewhere. And that definitely has a lot of links that go back to Pakistan and to the top echelons of al-Qaeda.
Okay, dear Rashwan, I can see you want to jump in there.
Yes. I don't agree with what is said from Washington now. If you want al-Qaeda from the beginning, it means the beginning. We speak about al-Qaeda. We are different about the date, the real date of the establishment of al-Qaeda. For example, if we take the double explosion of the American embassies in Kenya and Tanzania in August 1998, the statement of responsibility in this moment signed by the name of the Islamic Army for the Liberation of the Holy Sites. If al-Qaeda existed at this time, why did not declare its name? Then even the date of birth is different. But what is the reality of al-Qaeda? Al-Qaeda from the beginning, in my analysis, as I said 7 years ago, as a kind of franchise, as a kind of McDonald's or the other franchise, big franchise. You are free to be inside al-Qaeda, but it's conditioned to make the same food. The same food and the same model, this is the sole condition to be within al-Qaeda. Secondly, if we apply this in the last 5-7 years, we remark that the traditional recruitment for secret Islamic organizations never applicated for al-Qaeda. What we had is what we can call the self-recruitment. We have the case of Iraq, al-Tawheed wal-Jihad of Abu Mus'ab al-Zarqawi, which born as an independent organization, but they asked
dear listener, I'm going to jump in there. I'm so sorry to jump in, but we are short of time. So and I just want to give the opportunity to David in Washington just to respond to that, and then we want to take it on to the al-Qaeda of the future. But David, how would you like to respond to that?
I'll quickly respond that we have a large number of documents that were recovered from al-Qaeda, including the Harmony documents that are kept at West Point's Combating Terrorism Center, which show that al-Qaeda was a very bureaucratized organization. I also would point to the fact that when people have joined al-Qaeda proper, there's been an extensive number of forms that they've ended up signing as they go through that process. Those came forward, for example, in the Jose Padilla trial. So we fundamentally disagree about the nature of al-Qaeda, but maybe we'll have more agreement about al-Qaeda of the future.
All right, okay, well, now that's fine. Let's look ahead. Let's take another listen to another excerpt from the latest tape where Bin Laden says that al-Qaeda attacks will continue unless the US stops the war in Afghanistan and stops supporting Israel. Let's have a listen.
فإن أوقفتم الحرب فبها وأما إن كانت الأخرى.
If you stop the war, then fine. Otherwise, we will have no choice but to continue our war of attrition on every front, just as we have worn out the former Soviet Union for 10 years till it disintegrated. Continue to fight for as long as you wish. You are fighting a desperate war that you cannot win. We continue to fight for liberating our land. We will never give up the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Our commitment to Palestine is stronger than our willingness to live.
Saleem Shahzad, I don't know about you, but to me, that it sounds as if that Bin Laden's message has changed somewhat. I mean, it used to focus on perceived enemies in the West and threats to establish Arab countries and so forth, Arab leaders. But now there is this focus on Israel and more of a, perhaps, more of a measured, less provoking stance, would you say?
Well, the thing is, it is Osama Bin Laden's old stance. But on the operational tier, I mean, I don't think that Israel is on their target. Actually, their strategy is, according to their own terminology, is Khorasan, which is Afghanistan. I mean, Khorasan is the old name for Afghanistan. According to their theory, when they would have a victory in Afghanistan, then they would, regroup all the Muslim groups all over the world and go to Palestine to liberate the Israel. So in that course, I mean, he always, repeat his stance concerning Israel. Otherwise, he doesn't have any, any direct target at the moment against Israel.
What about Afghanistan? Is it just a kind of opportunism, seeking out local struggles and branding them as part of al-Qaeda's global jihad? What would you say to that, dear Ashwan?
Yes, first of all, I have only one word about what said about the Qaeda as a unified organization. First, we have only one sentence come from trail. In London attacks confirmed that al-Qaeda was involved. But the other dozens or hundreds attacks around the world out of Afghanistan and Pakistan, we have not any sentences came from any court. Secondly, if even we escape from this fact, if al-Qaeda still as a unified organization operated from its central in Afghanistan and Pakistan, it means this is a big failure for all the securities around the world, and it means that everybody responsible in this file have to resign. Then, you know, I don't agree at all that al-Qaeda is a unified organization. If I understand, going back to Osama Bin Laden's speech, Osama Bin Laden in his last speech, I think he changed radical positions vis-a-vis his old speeches. And his first time, for example, Osama Bin Laden spoke about September 11th attacks without saying attacks or conquest or Ghazwa. He only said 9/11. He never mentioned his 19 martyrs, his heroes. For the first time, he distinguished between American administrations, between bad and good.
Yeah, Barack Obama has put foreign policy high on his agenda, of course, determined to be different from his predecessor. After the attacks on the Twin Towers, George Bush famously began what he called the war on terrorism, and the United States began two major conflicts: Afghanistan in 2001 to bring down the Taliban, and 2 years later in Iraq, ousting Saddam Hussein. During this period, thousands of suspects were seized and, of course, transported to the United States base Guantanamo Bay, many of those under the controversial rendition program. Now, the Pentagon has ordered staff not to use phrases like war on terror, but instead to say rather convoluted phrases like overseas contingency operation. On taking office, Obama ordered the closure of Guantanamo Bay, although rendition continues to be used. He's promised more troops, aid and support to Pakistan, as well as Afghanistan, to combat al-Qaeda. And he pledged to reduce the operation in Iraq that some say is wasted money that could have been used elsewhere. So this change in rhetoric, adopting a more balanced tone, excluding words like war on terror, the question is, has it had an effect? Let's put that question, first of all, to Saleem Shahzad.
Al-Qaeda would be scared of these kind of policies, and that's why they would be aiming to spark new contradiction, fresh contradictions, so that this war would continue. You have to accept this fact. You have to realize this fact that Al-Qaeda aims to continue this war. It doesn't aim to shut down this war. There is no way that it would ever agree for any compromise until and unless they would have a conclusive victory in Afghanistan. And even after that, they would go for another war in the Middle East, according to their plans for the liberation of Palestine.
David Gartenstein-Ross, is that something that you would agree with, that al-Qaeda want to sort of perpetuate the war in Afghanistan?
I think that al-Qaeda definitely wants to win the war in Afghanistan. I think that they wouldn't be too upset if the United States packed its bags and left tomorrow, because they'd be able to claim a victory over the U.S. in the battlefield. But I should say that I very much agree with what Mr. Shahzad is saying, that the Obama administration's strategy is very dangerous for al-Qaeda. I think one of the clues that we get within this speech is Bin Laden's reference to John F. Kennedy and Robert Kennedy and their assassination. He argues that once a train is on its tracks, it can't leave those tracks. So his argument is that if Obama deviates too much from the Bush administration, then he could get assassinated. In essence, saying that regardless of what you other Muslims think of Obama, regardless of whether you like him more than Bush, the nature of the United States isn't going to change. That's a very defensive rhetorical stance vis-a-vis Obama.
So do you think in that case, David, that al-Qaeda is as dangerous as it always was, or is it actually more threatened than it ever has been?
That's a very difficult question to answer, because there are different ways to look at it. I think that operationally, right now, it's gained strength over the past 7 years, certainly, since losing its safe haven in Afghanistan. I think it's again at a point where it can consider undertaking a catastrophic terror attack, as it attempted in 2006 with the transatlantic air plot. I think in terms of its popularity, it's lost an enormous amount of popularity over the past 3 years for a variety of reasons, including its failures in Iraq Iraq, and also the new Obama administration, Obama's Cairo speech, and this kind of public messaging that you didn't get under the Bush administration. So it has some strengths and also some weaknesses, but it certainly isn't primed to go away anytime soon.
Dear Rashwan, briefly, if you would, what's your position on this, on how strong al-Qaeda is right now?
According to my hypothesis, it depending the region and the branch. We have some strengths of al-Qaeda. It's in the Arab Maghreb, al-Qaeda in Algeria, and we have other weakness of other branch in Saudi Arabia, which was very weakened last years. In Iraq, also al-Qaeda's branch was weakened. Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, Pakistan is strengthened than before. Then we are not in phase of equal development around the world, and it's confirmed my hypothesis that we are not in phase of one organization.
Okay, let me bring in Saleem Shahzad. How important do you think it is to capture or to kill Osama bin Laden now? You know, he's sown his seeds of ideology all over the place, and they've sprouted up all over the place. Really, taking him off the agenda wouldn't make any difference, would it?
One difference would certainly, it would certainly make a difference because of Osama bin Laden. All the philanthropists from the Middle East, send their money to, to this region of South Asia, to al-Qaeda. And if Osama bin Laden, is eliminated or he is caught, I don't think that that kind of money would be coming to this region. Nevertheless, I would say that al-Qaeda is no more an Arab organization. Now it is more a South Asian organization because the son of the soils of this region have joined, in a big number. So there are two aspects. Because as I mentioned, that he is a symbol for the movement, and because of that symbol, people have sympathies for this organization, and that's why they, send their monies and their charities and everything to this region to fuel the war in Afghanistan and to support al-Qaeda. I think that would make some difference.
Okay, David, finally to you in Washington. What do you think? Do you think he's still very much a viable, necessary target, or are there other more important figures that should be targeted?
I think he's a very important target. When Mr. Shahzad talked about people sending money to the region because of bin Laden, he put his finger on one of the ways that I think bin Laden is very important, which is that he's a very good organizer. He's someone with an enormous amount of connections, and rebuilding that when he's lost would be very difficult for the organization, particularly if his top lieutenants and his deputy Zawahiri ended up perishing along with him. But I do think that there are other figures waiting in the wings, Abu Yahya al-Libi, for example, who could end up stepping up front and center within the organization if bin Laden ends up getting killed.
All right, gentlemen, we appreciate your thoughts and your perspectives on this. It's been a very interesting discussion. David Gartenstein-Ross, Dia Rashwan, and in Islamabad, Saleem Shahzad. Thanks very much indeed for all your thoughts on this. And thanks for watching the program. Don't forget to write into us with your ideas. We're always happy to have those, and your comments and any suggestions you've got. Just send us an email to insidestory@aljazeera.net. From me, it's goodbye.